Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Stars sports podcast, Chiefs podcast. We're also on YouTube, and we're joined by Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Jesse Newell. We're going to talk about the Chiefs. It's been a while since we've gathered. Lots happened. A couple of Chiefs games. They just came through the dreaded 3 games in 11 days schedule. It's been a week since they've played now. I mean, it's just such a bizarre sequence of events. So much football has been played since the Chiefs have played on Christmas Day. Missouri and Kansas State have won bowl games. Been a bunch of NFL games since then. But how did I don't think that bizarre schedule could have worked out any better for the Chiefs, Vahe. What say you?
Well, it's really strange because we're now on the exact opposite end of the spectrum from what we went through when they had the 3 games in 11 days, 4 in 18. Now, and by the way, if you hear any background noise, I'm at the Mini Cooper dealer. There's a little work being done. I don't think it's on my car, but
are you under in a bay or something, or?
I'm as far away from the bay as I can be, and yet we've got motion. So, but the thing that's really interesting, and this is the crux of what you're getting at, is it's not only the time frame, obviously, between the Christmas game and the Denver game, it's the time frame now between having sealed the number 1 seed and the first playoff game with the bye in between. And I think we've been talking through this math the last couple of days, but it'll be, I guess, 23 days between games that matter to the Chiefs. And I think we've had 21 a time or two. Maybe you guys have had a chance to study it more, but this has got to be about the most time that you could ever have in this situation. Maybe there's been some scenarios where it's been a week longer, but I think that's pretty few and far between. And it poses its own dilemma, right? How do you get through 3 games in 11 days versus, oh, now they're playing their best, and how do you stay sharp?
Yeah, is there a rest versus rhythm question to be asked, Sam? We'll ask Andy about it on when we talk to him later this week. But I can't help but think that rest for the starters, that's what we're going to see. It hasn't been announced yet, but that's what we'll see this weekend in Denver. That nothing but good for the Chiefs will come from this schedule.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid always rests his guys when he has the opportunity. And there's certainly the coin here that he has to consider. It's a really long break. It's going to be 24, 25, or 26 days, depending on when their bye week game is. So that's a long time to be off. Andy Reid is pretty consistent in saying that the playoffs always speed up every week. And it's certainly a contrast that at practice you're asking your starters to slow down for the next week or so. But, Andy Reid is the best coach in NFL history when he's offered rest. I mean, there's nobody that takes advantage of these sequences better than he does. And his bye week record is well noted, but I want to put like an even further context to his bye week record, which is, and it's something I wrote last year, because remember, they took the week off last year, even though they had the 3 seed against the Dolphins. When he is the only team that has rest and the other team does not, he's 29-3 in those situations. Like, that record that's not a small sample size. There's obviously something to it. He's able to take advantage of when he's got time off. I think a lot of it is he just looks at his own team and looks internally at what can they improve rather than being so all consumed with the scout of the opponent. And that comes at particularly interesting timing for the Chiefs, because I'm sure it's other stuff on your list today for us to get into, Blair, but they really have only had 2 weeks with this new group of offense that they've had. And so I think that this particular break can do them a lot of good in that sense.
Yeah, especially on the offensive line, and then working in some players who kind of new to things with the Chiefs. That's amazing though. 29-3 when his team has rest and the opponent doesn't. I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, that's an advantage. So let's it's interesting to me that we spent a lot of time talking about the possible problems of playing a condensed schedule for all the teams, but of course we're the other four teams had to do it, Chiefs being one of them. But it turns out the Chiefs have been playing some of their best ball of the season in this stretch, right? The defense was so good. It started with the game at Cleveland, continued with the Saturday game against the Houston Texans, and then the Christmas Day game against the Steelers. At Cleveland, the defense was phenomenal with the 6 takeaways and the 5 sacks. And then Patrick Mahomes was terrific in games against the Texans and Steelers. So what's going on here, Jesse? Why are the Chiefs playing their best ball right now at a time that we thought the schedule was disadvantageous to them?
Yeah, well, I think Sam's hit on it really well. I think Hollywood Brown's a huge boost to them. This is sort of vision going into the year. I mean, you even add Rashee Rice, who, we kind of forget, oh, he's out for the year too. But just to think if they had all these weapons, all of a sudden this offense really opens up. And we've discussed it on this show before. Like in the NFL, pass offense is king. It beats everything. It's like the trump card. You get it, and if you're down, you win. If you are close, you win. And the Chiefs have really opened up their pass offense. I mean, they really haven't run the ball worth a flip here for a few weeks now. And it just doesn't matter if you're so good at passing. And, they did a lot of RPOs against the Steelers, and Mahomes really executed on those. Mahomes is playing at a completely different level. But to your point, Blair, I think what's so interesting now is, the second guessing that could happen, even though it probably should be first guessing from us if we're going to, because they have a lot of things to try to figure out here, which is like at left tackle, Joe Thuney is filled in admirably as a left guard at left tackle, and Mike Caliendo has stepped in admirably as a backup. But both of those guys have their own flaws and warts when they're trying to play in these positions that, they weren't supposed to at the beginning of the year. And here you have DJ Humphries potentially coming back from a hamstring injury. I asked Andy Reid earlier this week, what's your ideal scenario here? And he kind of is going to keep his options open. So it is fascinating. Like if the Chiefs struggle in their first playoff game, there's going to be a lot of things you look at and say, should they have rested guys this much? Should they not have? Should they have started DJ Humphries? Should they have started Joe Thuney? I mean, there's going to be a lot of potential second guessing that could go on. And it's sort of fascinating now because I don't know the right answers to this, but it is Andy Reid's job to look at all these scenarios and kind of figure out exactly what needs to happen and what the right decision is. And so it is a little bit dangerous there, but I do think the best scenario for the Chiefs remains that they have another left tackle and they can move their Pro Bowl left guard and Joe Thuney back to left guard. And all of a sudden, maybe they can run the football and have some more drop passing game. But in the interim, they've done a great job of adjusting to the pieces they have and really going to a quick passing RPO-based attack. And that really worked out well against the Steelers.
What was the stat about Mahomes' time to throw versus, was it against the Steelers? Yeah, against the Steelers.
It was the second quickest of his career. I think it was 2.3 seconds, 2.38, something like that. And it was the fastest of his NFL career. I looked up on Sports Info Solutions as well. The Chiefs dropped back and had 9 passing attempts out of run pass option plays that tied for the most of any team in the NFL this year. So those are the type of plays they went to. And again, they worked. They were taking some free yardage there, but how much can you do that? Can you do that against playoff teams? Can you do it against defenses that might be more ready for it? That's going to be the question that, moving forward.
Forgive me if anybody got into this and I didn't see it. I don't think we did, but a moment in that Steelers game that tied this all together to me that I felt like sort of just got lost in the shuffle a little bit was Mahomes hitting Hollywood Brown on that slant when it certainly appeared to me from each angle. He was looking at the side. It was a no-look, quick release, and boom. That to me looked like an absolutely unstoppable play that they could have in their repertoire now in ways that they hadn't before. And Sam really got into the whole effect of Hollywood and Worthy and having what it opens up for everybody else. But there are moments like that, snapshots like that we just couldn't see earlier in the season. And it has to do with not just that it's Hollywood Brown himself, but that what he adds to the existing group they have.
Yeah, that's the run pass option right there, Blair or Vahe. That's the if this guy crashes and you throw right behind his ear and whiz it to Hollywood Brown, who has the speed to be able to get the separation you want in that particular scenario. So yeah, that's what the Chiefs went back to over and over. And you see a lot of these out routes. I mean, Sam's highlighted this, but they've really changed how they utilize Xavier Worthy. And now they're using him so much on just basically these free routes to the outside where you're taking 5, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time if the zone defense is going to give it to you. But again, it is a little bit, this is different than what the Chiefs started the season as, and it still is kind of a limited playbook to what you want potentially. I mean, there's a certain scenario in a game you want to be able to drop back and have your left tackle and your right tackle block so you could potentially, throw the ball downfield or utilize a bunch of different routes in the offense. And right now, the Chiefs are sort of limiting themselves in the scope of what they can do, but doing that scope very well. So it leaves you, again, with these questions for the playoffs, which is like, do you want to continue to do that well and try to hone in on that? Or do you want to try to open up the playbook again, which is probably what you're going to need? And that's why I think this DJ Humphries game, potentially, if he's in there and can practice this week and go against Denver, it's a really big development for the course of the rest of the season.
I love that play, Vahe, that you mentioned, that quick slant to Hollywood. It reminded me of Tyreek Hill type of routes and moments where he would catch a pass like that and take it, right? And 60 yards later be in the end zone. And I hadn't seen much of that in the Chiefs offense since Tyreek Hill. So that was the one play from the Steelers game that I just went, wow, that's back. That's what a great thing that could be for the Chiefs. I want to I don't push back a little bit on Jesse's assertion that the Chiefs should move Thuney back to guard and put Caliendo on the bench and bring Humphries in. And I don't want to push back is too strong a word, maybe not the right word, but is that what Andy Reid's thinking? Is that what Andy Reid thinks is the best option for the Chiefs? And does that, how does that affect the importance of the Broncos game on Sunday, in which the Chiefs are playing for nothing? Backups are going to play, and assuming that DJ Humphries' hamstring has healed, that he's going to get the bulk of the snaps. What if he plays poorly in that game? If he does play and he plays poorly, as he did in his other appearance for the Chiefs, what does that say about the future of that position, the immediate future?
Well, that's why you need him to play. This is like a trial game for DJ Humphries, and their best option is not with Joe Thuney at left tackle, in my opinion. It's with having a solidified left tackle, an experienced guy who can play there. There's a reason that they got rid of the ball, the second quickest Patrick Mahomes' career. And one metric, True Media actually had it as the quickest that he's ever gotten rid of the ball in his career. Like, they knew their offensive line was an issue. Mike Caliendo, Andy Reid praised him in Monday's call. He has not played well in pass protection for the 2 weeks that he's gotten in there. Joe Thuney has been fine. It's just that fine has been a significant upgrade on what the Chiefs dealt with for the first 3 months of the season. So it seems, I think, like Joe Thuney has played at this all-pro level when he's still a left guard. He's an all-pro left guard. And there's a reason that, Jesse mentioned the running game hasn't been as good the last couple of weeks. There's a reason for it. The strength of this team was those 3 guys on the interior of the offensive line. That's gone. They separated that by moving Joe Thuney out to left tackle. So I think it's totally fair to wonder, even if DJ Humphries plays well, does he have enough snaps that you can rely on him going into the playoffs? But that's why I think he's got to play more than okay in this game against Denver. And that's also why I thought that Chiefs fans should have been really rooting for the Bengals on Saturday, because there's certain guys on this team, DJ Humphries is top of the list, who you want to be playing against starter caliber players where the game matters to the opposition. And he's going to get a lot better reps than he would have had the Broncos already clinched the playoffs, and suddenly it feels more like a preseason game to both teams.
It's a good point.
It's a complicated math thing here, too, because it's like, it's not just, I think we all agree that Thuney has stabilized the left tackle position, but what are you losing at left guard by having him at left tackle as well? This isn't where you can clone Thuney and put him at left tackle and left guard. There's an opportunity cost that you have, as Sam said, by putting Mike Caliendo in there. And, it's sort of interesting. I'm looking at, PFF grades are one measure. We can agree that they're not the end all be all. I think PFF would agree with that as well. But in the 3 games at left tackle, Joe Thuney has a 58 grade, which is 60 is average. Okay. Caliendo, in his games this year, his grade so far this year is 47. Again, 60 is average. And I mean, just to kind of compare these things, Wanye Morris in his 14 games in tackle, his grade is 51.9. So I mean, we're kind of talking about degrees here, and we know, like, again, Joe Thuney, when he's at left guard, is one of the best left guards in the NFL. So it's sort of a compliment to the Chiefs that, like, they really, really, really are catering things to make sure that Mike Caliendo and Joe Thuney's jobs are as easy as possible on that left side. And they won with it, and they've been successful with it. And they've had the pass game be really good here the last few weeks. But, like, is it sustainable? And is that the easiest path forward? Like, it's a compliment. A paper clip and a piece of gum and a rubber band all work and have it explode like MacGyver, and have the explosion at the end and create everything and do all that stuff. But, like, wouldn't you rather have the, the drone? Wouldn't you rather have the remote control? All these sorts of things. And so that's really what they face here, is like, it's a complicated math equation here to figure out if you are able to put guys back in their normal positions and get, again, we've been saying it all year, if you can get below average left tackle play from DJ Humphries, just not catastrophic like they've seen earlier this year, but below average, it's probably still a better equation for the Chiefs. And they probably have a bigger playbook they can go to and a better running game they can go to. But, like, can they get there? That, to Sam's point, is the question coming up in this Denver game.
The one other thing to note that, I have questions about, while I think the Chiefs have played their best football, particularly offensively, the past couple of weeks, I think the most pressing question about its sustainability is that they hadn't put this on film yet this year. And whoever they play in the playoffs is all week going to be studying those two games more than any other Chiefs games and Chiefs film this year. And therefore, they're going to have to adjust to what they don't know how defenses are going to play this style of offense yet, this quick passing game that we've all season said, this is what you got to do because your offensive line can't protect to let you run the ball deep or to throw the ball deep. Now that they've done it, like, defenses are going to be preparing that's the game plan that the Chiefs have. In these last two games that the offense has looked really good, the Chiefs have had the advantage there because this hadn't been on film yet.
And when there's a punch, you want a counter punch. You know what I mean? And the counter punches are limited if you continue what you have so far. So it's fine to push back, Blair. And I think there's a lot of people out there saying, hey, I mean, Joe Thuney deserves his flowers, all those sorts of things. And why would you mess with this? And listen, there might be second guessing if the Chiefs lose early in the playoffs because they didn't keep Joe Thuney there. But I think this is kind of the bigger picture discussion we're talking about here, which is, I think if given their way, if Andy Reid had his druthers, he would want a left tackle in there so he could put Joe Thuney back at left guard, and they could run some semblance of the entire playbook rather than really laser focusing on what works with those two guys at these new positions.
Let's face it, if they lose early in the playoffs, there's going to be second guessing no matter what happens in between now and then. It's sort of one of those, they might as well do what they think is best because they're going to have to live with it. And obviously they also know a lot more than, I'll speak for myself. I don't know about anybody else, but at this point, with Andy being 15-3 in the postseason in the Mahomes era, it seems like they're on to something.
I think it's important too, Blair, that, when I asked Andy, are you going with Joe Thuney moving forward? Like, he normally keeps his options open on this. He doesn't want to commit to it. But, like, if he thought it was going well enough, he could have happily said, like, Joe Thuney's a left tackle. We'll get DA in there. He can be the backup, all those sorts of things. And that's not what he said. So, again, he's a guy that likes to keep his options open, doesn't like to commit to things in the media, all those sorts of things. But the option was there at least Monday for him to say, nope, Joe Thuney's my guy. I've seen enough. And that really didn't seem to be the answer that he gave.
One other quick interjection, though, to your point there, Jesse. I think Andy is already kind of in postseason mode. We know he's a name-ranked serial number guy and would never want to play poker with him. But I mean, that conference call that we had with him on Monday was almost artistic in his ability to just not answer anything, even to the point of being asked about if he had any thoughts over the years about whether he had maybe rested too many guys or not played them enough in these different situations like this. And he just kind of worked his way around it without saying anything.
I think we'll get the answer about starters on Wednesday. I think, not 100%, but even Sean McDermott had to fess up a little bit. Was it yesterday? He said that Josh Allen was going to, even the Bengals have clinched the number 2 seed. He said Josh Allen was going to play.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the Bills. or Josh Allen's just going to play a little, maybe a series or two, something like that. I do think in the past, Andy Reid has said before the game whether starters are going to play or not. But
Blair, why don't you ask him for the roster of guys who won't be playing when we get in there on Wednesday?
Yeah, we should. Just could he hand it out? Yeah.
Can I tell you the answer to that? That'll be the Andy sound effect.
If there's a sacrificial lamb on the call, I nominate Blair.
Or is it going to be one of those where we've had to do this a couple times, 2 or 3 times this year? Wait till the team comes out an hour before the game to see who's lining up with the first team, especially at left tackle. We've had to just wait until that long. So
it's going to be like that with some guys. I mean, I think we'll know that Patrick Mahomes isn't playing. Our experience will tell us that guys like Travis Kelce won't play. I mean, Trent McDuffie has played a ton of snaps this year. I think I don't see why you'd put Chris Jones back out there. We know Isaiah Pacheco's not going to be playing. Anybody who's dealing with any sort of injury is going to be out. But yeah, I think there's some guys that he is going to keep to himself. I mean, let's face it, if you don't think DJ Humphries is your long-term option, Kingsley Suamataia could benefit to have a game.
Sure, Wanya Morse could. I mean, right? Like, if that's your backup left tackle. But to Sam's point, this is one of those big things that going from college to pro, I really have to remind myself. Like in college, you always see the home roster and there's 105 people lined up with jerseys on the sideline. So if you really wanted to not play starters or your backups, you could do it. That's not the way in the NFL. I mean, you got 53 dudes. And so like you can choose to rest Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins, the really important guys. But as we saw last year against the Chargers, like most of the Chiefs' offensive line was out there. They got to play some snaps, So a lot of these guys that even some of the household names, they're going to have to play because this is not unlimited rosters like it is in college.
And look, the Broncos are playing for something. They're playing for their playoff lives. They have not been in the postseason since winning the Super Bowl for the 2015 season. They are desperate to be in the hunt in the playoffs. And in the 2 years Sean Payton has been in Denver, they've played the Chiefs tough. Beat them at Mile High last year, ending, I think it was an 8-game Chiefs winning streak in that stadium, and really outplayed them this year until that was the block field goal game at Arrowhead with Leo Chenal blocking the 35-yard Will Lutz field goal attempt to seal that victory for the Chiefs. I think this is a Broncos team with Bo Nix going forward that will challenge the Chiefs along with the Chargers. And the Raiders are a lost cause, but I think the Chargers and Broncos are going to be in the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be able to challenge the Chiefs going forward. They both franchises have a coach and a quarterback, right? And you haven't been able to say that about those teams in the last few years. So Denver will be playing for everything on Sunday. Just a couple of other notes before I switch topics. In these last 3 games, Chiefs +8 in turnover ratio, right? They've 8 takeaways, no giveaways. Patrick Mahomes has gone 237 pass attempts without an interception after having that issue earlier this year. He's still sitting on, is it 12 for the year, I think? He was at 12 and like 13 touchdown passes at one point, and now it's something like 26 touchdown passes and 12 picks, and it'll stay that way, right? If he doesn't play on Sunday, that'll be his regular season record. So I want to kind of wind down with this thought. Who do the Chiefs want and not want to see in the playoffs? We know they're heading there. We know they're going to play the worst remaining seed after the first weekend of games, the wild card round. Who do they not want to play, or does it matter at this point? Vahe mentioned it: 15-3 in the playoffs under Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes. 2 road victories a year ago. For the first time, they played a playoff game on the road, True Enemy Stadium, and one at Buffalo and at Baltimore. I've been hearing things, been picking up on things this week. There might be teams that Chiefs don't want to play in the postseason. I don't know about that. What do you think?
The one quick thing I'll just say is that after last season, I'm pretty convinced it doesn't matter. And Jesse and Sam both broke this down. That was an historical path to the Super Bowl. Actually, overall playoff path, right? No team. You
The
can
hardest in
demonstrate-
NFL, the hardest in NFL history.
Yeah, and on the road at Buffalo and Baltimore, and then the 49ers were favored, right? So I don't think it matters. I think it's the opposite. I think that anybody the Chiefs play is going to have to. They're going to have the Chiefs in their head one way or another. And I know that that's not the whole story, right? And that at some point this changes, but that's true until it isn't.
Yeah, and the elephant in the room is the Chiefs can knock the Bengals out of the playoffs with the loss, and that is where a lot of the national narrative has been. But it's been a long time since the Chiefs lost to the Bengals. They've won 2 Super Bowls since they last lost to the Bengals. I think that should no longer be a thing, and they should just play this game as best suited for them. We've mentioned all the benefit they could still get out of this game, even though it means nothing to them. But when you look at their entire playoff path, there is right now the best case scenario is the most likely scenario for them, which has the Steelers and Texans playing in the first round, and the Ravens and Bills, if they hold serve, the Chiefs get the Steelers or Texans as their first game. I don't think either of those teams are any good. And the second game, they only have to play in the AFC Championship just either the Bills or the Ravens rather than playing them both. It's why this 1 seed beyond the bye was such a significant thing. Is the Ravens right now, I think, are the best team in the NFL. If they had home field advantage, I'd be picking them to the Super Bowl. The Bills are still playing really good football. I think there's a lot of legitimate questions about their defense. But those are, to me, there's 3 clear best teams in the AFC when you lump in those 2 with the Chiefs. And the advantage the Chiefs have that those others don't is you can only play one of them. You don't have to play 2 of them to get there. So I don't see any first round matchup as overly fearsome for the Chiefs, while also recognizing this team won 6 games on the last snap of a football game. They can lose to anybody this year. So I'm not saying they won't lose. I'm just saying when you rank the matchups, those matchups would be considerably easier than having to play the Ravens or Bills in the second round.
Yeah, if you're just going totally rational here, Sam, and kind of looking at some of the Vegas numbers and stuff, most of these teams that the Chiefs could play are within like 2 points of each other. So if you're trying to give yourself just the slightest of edges, you probably want to play a team like a Pittsburgh or a Denver in the first round. That would just give you a slight bit of edge over the other ones. The toughest team probably to play would be the Bengals. But as you've mentioned, and we all know here, like if the Chiefs play the Bengals, it means the Bengals will have beaten the Bills. And if the Bengals beat the Bills and knock the Bills out of the playoffs and the Chiefs don't have to play them in the playoffs, where do the Chiefs sign up for that? Because they will do that right now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, again, we're talking small margins in the playoffs. This is what happens every single year. One thing, one fumble, one pick, one whatever, it makes the difference between winning and losing. And so if you're just looking at team strength and going by that, like the Bengals are probably the toughest team the Chiefs could play in that first round. But again, they would be happy with that because the Bills would be out. And then the easiest would probably be the Steelers or the Broncos. But I thought you made a good point earlier, Blair, which is the thing that makes this a little bit more tricky for the Chiefs in other years is sometimes you can go to these games, you go, well, this team doesn't have a coach or this team doesn't have a quarterback. It's a little bit different this year with the AFC West and those teams you're looking at because Bo Nix and Sean Payton, or you're looking at Jim Harbaugh and, obviously Justin Herbert. And those 2 teams are different to me. I sense those teams differently because, as you mentioned, those 2 things are covered this year more than they have been in years past.
That is, to me, the worst case scenario for me for the Chiefs is that the Chargers beat the Ravens in the first week, and then you've got to host the Chargers, a team that Justin Herbert has never feared coming into Arrowhead Stadium. So you'd have to face that team in the first round and then likely the Bills in the AFC Championship. That Chargers-Bills combo, I think, sets up, given where these seeds are most likely to fall, probably the most difficult path that the Chiefs could have.
I'd agree. I would agree with Sam on that one. Yep.
And I'll echo Vahe's sentiments that I think whoever the 6 other teams end up being should fear the Chiefs for sure. I mean, this is a team that's playing its best ball right now. No matter how the offensive line lines up, it is maybe a month from now or a month and a week, 6 weeks, I guess. If I'm looking for the Super Bowl date. From now, we're going to be looking back and saying this was the best of the postseason Chiefs teams as they rampage through the playoffs. Maybe We'll see.
Hey, one quick recommendation for our listeners is, if they didn't see it, to read Sam's column that brings together all of this about why Andy Reid should be coach of the year, considering all these crazy things the Chiefs have done and been through, with 4 starting left tackles and 3 game-winning kicks by different kickers, and just all the things that held together. Jesse made the MacGyver reference earlier. You could say that about Andy Reid and what he's had to do with some aspects of this team too. And I bring that up also in the context of, this is sort of the story that doesn't matter this week unless it becomes a Chiefs win. But this would be Andy Reid's 300th win if they win Sunday, and that's pretty rarefied air. Only 3 men have won more in NFL history, and that's a topic for another time. But Andy's going to start to become in range of Don Shula's 347 in the next couple of years if he keeps at it.
Well, and that's to steal what you wrote, Blair, immediately after the Pittsburgh game. I mean, there is some meaning in this game. The Chiefs can match, as you pointed out, the most wins ever in a regular season in the NFL. The Patriots went 16-0 in 2007. Nobody else has ever gotten to 16 wins. They also could win the most games overall, regular season and playoffs combined, of any team. If they win this last game and then win the Super Bowl, nobody's ever won 19 games in a season, and they could still get there too.
Right. The 84 49ers and the 85 Bears won 18 by winning the 15-1 seasons and then winning the Super Bowl. So, okay.
And the Patriots too. Patriots won 18 by losing the Super Bowl.
And lost the Super Bowl. That's right, in their 16-0 season. And Andy Reid's not going to get a sniff for Coach of the Year, because that's just how it rolls in Coach of the Year voting. All right, guys, great conversation as always. Big thanks to Randy Mason and Monty Davis for producing this show, and we'll be back soon on SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports and especially the Chiefs these days, in and around Kansas City. Thanks a lot, guys.